This is CNN.
Private fury over a public furor. A secretly taped conversation of Yasser Arafat reveals the PLO chief's rage toward Jews and France.
The agony of ecstasy, a designer drug that threatens Europe with disaster.
And the latest problem snarling the Middle East. It's not a political storm this time, but a blast of winter weather. Welcome to our viewers around the world. I'm Frank Sesno.
And hello, I'm Donna Kelley. When radical Palestinian leader George Habash arrived in France for medical treatment last month, it sparked heated political controversy. Well, now the angry reaction of PLO chairman Yasser Arafat to the affair threatens to set off another political firestorm. A secretly taped Arafat conversation obtained by CNN shows the PLO chief was livid over the way France dealt with Habash. CNN special assignment correspondent Steve Emerson has the story.
It's become known as the Habash affair, a furor which is shaking the political future of France's socialist government. George Habash, a key member of the PLO, was admitted to France for medical tests on January 29th of this year. Habash has been accused by the United States and other governments of involvement in numerous terrorist attacks in the past 2 decades. The massacre at Lod Airport in 1972, the hijacking of an Air France plane in 1976, and an attack on a bus in Israel last year that left 2 dead. When a French television station showed footage of Habash's arrival in France, it provoked a storm of public outrage. 6 senior French government officials deemed responsible for Habash's entry into France lost their jobs. After 3 days, Habash left France and returned to Tunis, after France's top anti-terrorism investigator tried to question him. Publicly, the PLO took a fairly low profile during the controversy, but CNN has learned that PLO leader Yasser Arafat was furious at the French and at the Jews over the Habash affair. CNN has obtained this tape of a conversation between Arafat in Tunis and the PLO envoy in Paris. The tape recording was provided to CNN by a Western law enforcement agency. Journalists and Arab specialists familiar with Arafat confirm it is his voice on the tape. A voice identification expert analyzed the tape for CNN and said that while there isn't enough material for a positive legal identification, the voice on the tape is consistent with other recordings of Arafat's voice. The conversation took place just 13 days ago on January 30th. Habash had been in France for 1 day at that point. In the first part of the conversation, Arafat instructs the PLO representative in Paris, Ibrahim al-Sous, to protest to the French government about the mounting criticism of Habash.
You officially informed the foreign ministry. Now get this. What has just happened is shameful. I'll send over a plane and take him back to where he came from.
The envoy tells Arafat that it is not the fault of the socialist French government, pinning the blame instead on other parties.
The government has nothing to do with this matter at all. It's the opposition and the Jews. The Jews, they are at work.
This comment apparently enrages Arafat.
The Jews at work, damn their fathers, the dogs, filth and dirt. All this for one sick man. I took care of and treated their ill and sick. But trash is always trash. And thanks to the rotten Jews with whom I will settle accounts in the future. For a sick man, what? Did we send him to have fun on the Champs-Élysées? We sent him to the Red Cross.
In his final comments, Arafat unleashes a broadside at the French, often seen as the PLO's best friends in Europe.
We don't want their medical treatment. We don't want their low civilization, their arrogant civilization, their dirty civilization.
And in a prescient moment, Arafat adds,
and I'm speaking to you on a bug telephone. Let them record this and play it on television. Thank you, brother.
Contacted by CNN, a spokesperson for the PLO said the PLO could not comment until it heard the tape. Clearly, Arafat's comments were insulting to the French and to the Jews. Yet publicly, over the last few years, Arafat and the PLO have been increasingly conciliatory toward Israel. Yet if Arafat's comments are interpreted as provocative, this episode could damage the new Middle East peace talks launched by the United States. Stephen Emerson, CNN, Special Assignment.
We had been hoping to bring you comments of a spokesman and advisor to Yasser Arafat following that report. After hearing the report, however, the individual says he does not want to comment at this time. 2 Libyans indicted in the terrorist bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 are now in the center of a big mystery. The Washington Post reports the Libyans have disappeared and may have been executed. The Post quotes Vincent Canestraro, former head of CIA counterterrorist operations, who says his information comes from sources in Libya. 270 people died when Flight 103 blew up over Lockerbie, Scotland back in 1988. The United States and Britain have demanded that Libya extradite the 2 men to face prosecution. U.S. government terrorism specialists tell CNN they received reports 2 weeks ago that the 2 Libyans may have disappeared, but they haven't been able to corroborate the report since then. A Libyan judge, however, tells Reuters news agency that the 2 men are safe and were last seen just 2 days ago. Algerian security forces, armed with sweeping new emergency powers, continue their crackdown against Muslim fundamentalists. The French news agency AFP says about 180 people arrested during recent clashes with police today received prison sentences ranging from 2 months to 3 years. The action came as thousands of people turned out for funeral services of police officers killed yesterday. Officials say 8 officers were gunned down by Muslim militants. Security forces searching for the gunman today threw a cordon around a mosque near Algiers where militants reportedly held worshippers hostage. Witnesses say the gunman later escaped. And when we come back from Holland and Britain, the dangerous desire for ecstasy, now convicted of rape. What sort of sentence is likely for Mike Tyson? And the games of '92. We'll have the latest from Albertville.
Usually, when you send flowers out of town, you give the order to somebody who takes a cut. Then he passes the order to somebody else who takes a cut. But now there's Flowers Direct that actually lets you speak to a florist in the town where you're sending the flowers. Flowers Direct. All we cut is the middleman. Call Flowers Direct now, 1-800-621-2121.
Cutbacks continue.
Recession.
Politicians.
Crime.
Pollution. Daycare. Not having any time.
Job insecurity.
You never needed it more. A new extra-strength pain reliever made to get today's tough headaches before they really get you. 1,000 milligrams, Stomach Guard, and the name Bayer. That should ease your mind. Introducing new extra-strength Bayer Plus. Now there's no pain you can't bear.
Hey, man. Want to taste of something make you feel good? Leave me alone. Try it out. You don't know what you're missing. A little crack won't hurt you.
It'll make me a crackhead.
Won't cost you nothing. This one's on me. Absolutely free.
I said no, man.
Good job, son. That's just what you do if that ever happens.
Okay, Dad.
Deal with your kids. Tell them the truth about drugs. It could be the most important role you ever play.
Like how you handle yourself.
I make a better burger than anybody. Absolutely the best. Best in the world. I let it sizzle. When I hear it, I know it's ready. Wait, it's not done. Now, it's done.
A1. It's how burgers are done.
Tonight, actress Joan Collins takes the stage for her new role coming to New York. Plus, feminist Gloria Steinem on the women's movement, past and present. Tonight on Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Phase 2 of the trial of former world heavyweight champion Mike Tyson is underway. Convicted of rape and 2 other felonies last evening, Tyson was back today before court officers in pursuit of a lenient sentence. He faces a maximum of 60 years in prison, but is likely to receive far fewer, probably 7 to 11 years. That's according to the deputy prosecutor. Her boss, Prosecutor Greg Garrison, appeared satisfied with the verdict last evening.
While we're confident of the verdict, and while we remain steadfast in our posture versus the crime that was committed, we do have a sense of compassion for any defendant who's convicted of a crime and faces the uncertain future that this young man does. So we're not going to pop any champagne corks, but we're all profoundly grateful that the system has worked once again.
Tyson is to be sentenced on March 6th. In the meantime, his lawyers are expected to file appeals. The Supreme Court has rejected an emergency request to stop the forced return of Haitian refugees for the time being. A high court ruling today allows the United States to continue sending Haitians home by boat. But it also gives the Justice Department 3 days to respond to charges from lawyers for the refugees. The attorneys say the Bush administration knew for weeks that some Haitian returnees have faced torture, even murder. The lawyers say the government withheld this information before justices okayed the forced return policy late last month.
Police in London found a bomb this morning not far from where Vice President Dan Quayle was to meet with British officials. It did not explode. Authorities think the Irish Republican Army planted the device. It happened as key talks began on Northern Ireland's fate now. CNN's Rob Reynolds reports.
Irish terrorists have proven once again that they can disrupt life in Britain's capital. Central London was brought to a standstill after a telephone bomb threat caused police to seal off the area around Parliament and the Prime Minister's office. Police searched the area and found a bomb in a phone booth outside a government office. The bomb squad quickly disarmed the device and traffic flowed past the Houses of Parliament again. But the scare was an unwelcome echo of the much more serious violence that has afflicted Northern Ireland in recent weeks.
People in Northern Ireland have suffered these intrusions to their life for many years. They have continued resolutely on with their normal way of life.
But life in Northern Ireland is anything but normal. Since the beginning of the year, 26 people have been killed in sectarian violence. Last week alone, 2 separate massacres in Belfast took 8 lives. With the region moving closer to outright civil war, leaders of Ulster's 4 main political parties were summoned to the Prime Minister's office to discuss the security situation. Ulster's unionist politicians, representing the Protestant majority in the province, favor a security crackdown with more troops, tougher prison sentences, and internment without trial for suspected terrorists. The Labour and Social Democratic leaders say a security solution won't work and say only a political settlement can bring peace. While the meeting produced no breakthroughs, Prime Minister Major said he was encouraged.
In our meeting this afternoon, everyone present was unanimous in condemning terrorist attacks, whatever their source may be. Terrorists who claim to be acting on behalf of one community or the other were, in fact, acting against the interests of all the people in Northern Ireland.
Major also announced a substantial increase in troops for Northern Ireland. It's estimated that 18,000 soldiers are already on patrol there, the highest number in over a decade. Rob Reynolds, CNN, London.
British police have more than political extremists to worry about. A new designer drug called ecstasy is fast becoming popular in both Britain and in the Netherlands. Robin White examines the danger for those in search of ecstasy.
There is one side to Amsterdam the tourist guides don't mention. The tidal wave of ecstasy which is threatening to engulf this city. For years, the Dutch authorities have been known for their pragmatic approach to cannabis, still openly on sale in the coffee shops around the city. Now they are faced with a generation who are turning on to something far different. Ecstasy is the fastest-selling drug in Holland, outstripping by far anything else. On the streets, only yards from police, the ecstasy dealers openly tout for business.
I give you 6 for 200.
6 ecstasy tablets for 200 grams. At house parties and nightclubs, voluntary workers offer leaflets advising people not against taking ecstasy, but giving details and safe dosages. Again, the pragmatic approach.
It's possible to give people information about ecstasy so that they use it, if they use it, that they use it well and that they don't misuse it, because then ecstasy can be dangerous.
Dutch police reserve the heavy hand for those who deal in the hardest drugs such as heroin. Small-scale users such as these heroin addicts are not arrested, and neither are their supplies taken away. Harassing addicts, police say, will only force them to commit more crime. In a private garage in Veldhoven, police have discovered an ecstasy-making laboratory for turning powder into pills. One man is arrested and the equipment confiscated. But the drug is getting through from ports like Rotterdam straight to Britain. Over 90% of ecstasy such as this seized coming into Britain comes from Holland. At a nightclub in Widnes, bouncers search people coming in for drugs, but the management know that however diligent their efforts, ecstasy is being used here.
Do you worry about what it might be doing to you?
No, because I always feel all right after the bad innings. And, like, you just feel really nice and, like, you don't think it's harming you.
But doctors at the National Poisons Unit say ecstasy is extremely harmful and believe it can cause brain damage or death. Drugs workers say the consequences are horrifying.
We have a mass experiment in illegal drug use where we don't know precisely what the drug does to the brain. We don't know whether there's any safe dose. We don't know to the nearest 100,000 how many young people are using it. We don't know the psychological and physical consequences over the short or medium term. There is a remarkable degree of ignorance about this drug.
Barry and Angela Jones know exactly what the dangers can be. Their son Glyn took ecstasy at a party. 3 days later, he was dead. With cases like that on file, the British authorities are increasingly unlikely to move towards the freer line taken by their Dutch counterparts. No matter how different the attitude between the authorities here in Holland and in Britain, the problem they both face is undoubtedly growing. Many here believe the boom in ecstasy has only just begun. Robin White, ITN, Amsterdam.
Still to come, it's unfamiliar cuisine for most Russians. We'll tell you how the poor in Moscow are reacting to their taste of U.S.-donated food. And Britain's Princess Diana visits India's Monument to Love.
Get ready, basketball fans. It's coming right at you. Showtime! Your chance to get every magic moment all on one incredible video. Magic Johnson, always Showtime. It's free with your paid subscription to Sports Illustrated, the nation's #1 sports weekly. Your free video is a dazzling look at the fabulous career of Irvin Magic Johnson. He digs down deep into his bag of tricks to take you on a victory ride you won't forget.
Straight down the middle. Still going, still going. Oh!
You'll cheer every exciting minute as you follow this leader up and down the court, wherever he goes, from high school to college to the pros. He just keeps on winning with an enthusiasm, a spirit and style that would change the NBA. Call this toll-free number now to be sure you get in on all the excitement free.
Magic's 18-footer wins it.
Don't miss the rookie's first NBA championship as he rises above the crowd to stun the Sixers. And you'll be there for all the battles with the legendary Larry Bird, the rivalry that started in college and continued in the NBA. You'll feel the intensity, the frustration, and the excitement as the two fight for the last shot, the one that makes champions.
Didn't shoot in 5 seconds left. Magic down the middle, just what I thought. A hook shot at 12.
Magic's just a great basketball player. He's the best I've ever seen.
Get 60 minutes of memorable Magic, free from Sports Illustrated. Get your free video and 54 issues of Sports Illustrated, including the Olympic preview and the famous swimsuit issue, for only $1.29 an issue. Save over 55% off the cover price. You may use your credit card. Follow all your favorites in Sports Illustrated. Call now to subscribe or renew and get this memorable video free. For quicker delivery, use your credit card. The magic of Irvin Johnson will always be something special, something we can't forget. Treasure it always. And every week, enjoy the continuing drama and emotion of sports in Sports Illustrated.
Another giant U.S. Air Force transport plane flew food and other supplies to Russia today. The first meals are already being served after shipments of U.S.-donated aid began arriving in the former Soviet Union yesterday. CNN's Claire Shipman reports the U.S. aid is getting a welcome reception.
If the Bush administration was looking for a public relations boost, the Western press corps in Moscow was only too happy to oblige. Scores of reporters and cameras crunched together for a view of the surplus military rations and medicine in the belly of the giant U.S. transport plane. Flights landed in all parts of the former Soviet Union. In St. Petersburg, the crates were blessed and then photographed. The first delivery in Moscow was to a newly opened Salvation Army soup kitchen.
I'm grateful. I'm a widow, and everything in the stores is quite expensive for me.
It was really tasty food, so of course it's a good thing. But we'd have gotten by anyway. After all, we survived the war.
Even U.S. officials say the airlift is more symbolism than substance, but the Salvation Army chief says it's welcome nevertheless.
Without the shipment, we would be operating 3 soup kitchens. Now, with the shipment, we're opening 19.
Local cooks got a lesson in preparing the unfamiliar foods. And as travels the food, so does the Western media. In fact, there were more cameras and reporters than customers at the charity kitchen. An old woman hoping for a bowl of soup in peace learned even charity has its costs. Even the kitchen cat took off. While the $78 million airlift may provide a short-term publicity boost, the Bush White House remains under sharp criticism for doing far too little, $5 billion in mainly in credits to buy U.S. grain, far too late. Europe, by contrast, has pledged $80 billion in the last 2 years, the lion's share coming from Germany. Claire Shipman, CNN, Moscow.
President Bush reassured European leaders today that the United States remains committed to NATO. In meetings with Turkey's Prime Minister, the President said the United States intends to retain a strong military presence in Europe. Mr. Bush was responding to comments by U.S. senators speaking in Europe this past weekend. They predicted the number of U.S. troops stationed in Europe would fall well below the 150,000 President Bush calls for in a post-Cold War Europe. Chants of God is great and death to America rang out across Iran on this 13th anniversary of the late Ayatollah Khomeini's Islamic Revolution there. Hundreds of thousands of Iranians marched in the streets of Tehran. President Hashemi Rafsanjani addressed the rally, claiming half a generation after the revolution, Iran's international status is improving. Ceremonies and marches marked the culmination of 11 days of official celebrations, which began February 1st, the anniversary of Khomeini's 1979 return to Tehran. A lone gunman shot his way into the offices of Japan's ruling party today. The 21-year-old was also armed with a samurai sword. He occupied the empty office of Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa for 7 hours before giving up. The gunman demanded that the cabinet resign and that Japan return to the pre-war system of emperor worship.
Still to come, a look at the Cuban-American influence on U.S. politics and policy.
From the very beginning, our public schools have worked hard to reach an ambitious goal, giving every child a quality education. But schools haven't done it alone. For generations, they've counted on the commitment and involvement of the entire community. Let's invest our time, our talent, and the resources it takes to make education a national priority.
Invest in education, America. Our future depends on it.
Have you had your V8 today? Did you know that V8 juice has less than half the calories of that apple?
Wow!
Did you know that V8 has more vitamins A and C than that tossed salad? Wow! And did you know that V8 is 100% vegetable juice, so it has no fat, unlike that low-fat yogurt?
Wow!
So how do you feel now that you know these things? Wow! I gotta have a V8. V8 is a nutritious blend of 8 vegetable juices that taste terrific. Have you had your V8 today?
There's constipation and there's constipation. Oh, yeah.
When it's this bad, take it to the max. New Maximum Relief Formula X-Lax pills with 50% more X-Lax medicine for maximum relief.
Oh, yeah.
Take it to the max.
What does the future hold for you?
People in their 30s and 40s are becoming very concerned about what's out there for them when they turn 65.
Now there is a news program that answers your concerns.
We're getting into the areas of national health insurance and folks' sense of security and how that might be affected by a changing economy.
The issues that we address are of immediate concern perhaps to much of the audience and of future concern to everybody.
Early Prime with Sharyl Attkisson and Lou Waters today at 4 on CNN.
The Cold War with the former Soviet Union may have melted away, but an icy wind continues to blow in relations between the United States and one of its nearest neighbors, Cuba. And the Cuban-American community is working to keep Castro's Cuba in a deep freeze. CNN's Charles Jaco reports from Miami.
There are around 1 million people in the United States who were born in Cuba. Despite such small numbers, they have an almost unprecedented influence on U.S. policy, both domestic and overseas.
They have economic as well as political clout. They have organized themselves effectively.
These people are going to be heard from to a disproportionate degree in the issues that are affecting that one small country.
Primary political voice for Cubans living in the United States is the Cuban-American National Foundation. Its goal, to maintain a hard line against Cuban dictator Fidel Castro.
They've succeeded. Our policy for 30 years has been a policy of isolation of Castro.
The Cuban-American National Foundation has its greatest successes and its greatest influence in Washington, which is where they concentrate in terms of their influence. They have given money to political campaigns. They've been influential in getting senators and congressmen and people in administration to see things their way.
The foundation, for example, is the only private agency outside of the U.S. government empowered to issue immigration green cards. The foundation gets its money from private donations and has picked up the entire cost to resettle 8,000 Cuban refugees.
We persuaded the executive branch of government and the legislative power to tell them that it is essential that we privatize the refugee industry in this country.
Jorge Mas is the foundation's controversial head. He's often accused in Miami of being a power broker who's running to be the first post-Castro president of Cuba and of using political activism as a guise for political power. For example, there is Radio and TV Marti, run by the U.S. government, broadcasting into Cuba. The cost, $30 million a year, even though TV Marti is almost totally jammed by the Cubans. Jorge Mas is on the board of both.
The concessions they've gotten from the U.S. government, like TV Marti, like Radio Marti, which can be clearly seen as concessions to the Republicans' minority of choice, which are Cuban Americans.
Jorge Mas does not respond to the support or lack of support of this Cuban American community, really. His support comes from Washington.
I exercise probably some influence among my friends. Yes, I have a lot of friends.
Analysts say when it comes to presidential elections, Florida would be a toss-up state without the so-called Cuban vote. The Cubans tend to vote solidly GOP for president. The Reagan administration knew that. So does the Bush White House. And with political muscle like that, Cuban exiles and Cuban Americans will probably continue to wield considerable political influence, both in U.S. domestic politics and in United States policy toward Fidel Castro. Charles Jaco, CNN, Miami.
And coming up on CNN World Report, Germany's proposed high-tech rail system generates environmental and financial opposition.
Making life a little sweeter. Making life a little sweeter. Mars. Making life a little sweeter. I can stay a while. Making dreams a little truer. Life a
When her little patient is coughing, it's the biggest thing on Mom's mind. That's why there's Robitussin Pediatric. Long-lasting, great-tasting cough relief just for kids. Robitussin Pediatric Cough, a new cough and cold formula recommended by Dr. Mom.
On CNN Today, is a cup or two of Joe anything to get steamed about? Coffee and cholesterol on Early Prime. Then on The World Today, fighting the high cost of aging. All today on CNN.
International Hour continues, followed by Early Prime after this local commercial break. Next on CNN.
Isn't there anything else on?
Different people like different things.
This looks good.
which is why this year at TCI,
This looks good. No.
we're spending over $600 million on cable programming.
No.
Just to make sure there's always something on. Everyone wants to watch.
Oh, hi. Want to see a story about the plastonauts?
At least that's the goal.
Here's one about a robot. You know, a machine that
This
sees
looks good.
different kinds of jobs.
This is CNN.
Time now for a look at the day's financial news, and Beverly Schuch, who stands by live at the New York Stock Exchange. Beverly.
Thanks, Frank Sesno. And right now, investors are having several changes of heart on Wall Street. Stocks right now back in the plus column after being up 10 and down 10 points today. The Dow Jones Industrial right now is up 10.5 points at 32.55, and volume on the big board is heavy. 181 million shares traded so far. Advancers leading decliners by an 8-to-7 ratio. And on the broader and secondary markets, all four key indicators are posting losses. British Airways stock is rallying right now. It is up 4 7/8 points at 44 3/4 after reporting third quarter pre-tax profits jumping 400%. Goodyear Tire also gaining. It is up 1 point at $61 3/8 a share after reporting a jump in fourth quarter earnings. At today's Treasury auction, yields on 3-year notes fell to the lowest level since the Treasury first issued them back in 1974. $15 billion worth of notes bought an average yield of 5.54%. That is still slightly better than expected. The Treasury will auction 10-year notes and 30-year bonds on Wednesday and Thursday. Right now, the 30-year bond slipped a little after that. It is off 1 tick in price, the yield at 7.78%. The U.S. dollar is extending recent gains, especially versus the European currencies. Right now, the dollar is up 1 3/4 pfennigs against the German mark. It is up 2 cents against the British pound and up 2/3 of a yen against the Japanese currency. That's the latest in business news. We'll be back with another update in 1 hour. Be sure to join us tonight for Moneyline with Lou Dobbs. We will tell you how the surge of small investors on Wall Street means more jobs for brokers. We'll have that story and more on Moneyline tonight with Lou Dobbs at 7 and 11:30 p.m. Eastern. One last check of the stock market right now shows the Dow is up 12 points. I'm Beverly Schuch reporting live from the New York Stock Exchange.
Beverly, thank you. Britain's Princess Diana went alone to India's Temple of Love today. The princess visited the Taj Mahal as part of a 6-day tour of India. She left her husband, Prince Charles, behind in Delhi while she went to the temple in Agra, about 125 miles south of the capital. The Taj Mahal was built by a 17th century Indian emperor for his wife. The princess posed for the British press, which has often speculated the royal marriage is rocky. She also visited a family planning clinic in Agra. And still ahead, Jim Huber will update today's Olympic competition in his sports reports, and we'll tell you about rains in the Middle East that have overstayed their welcome.
I was afraid of the computer, but with Quicken, it's easy to use.
I never worry about money now that I use Quicken.
Yes, Quicken, the world's #1 selling financial software and the fastest, easiest way to organize your home and small business finances. Quicken pays bills, balances checkbooks, cuts tax time, tracks investments. And it's simple. If you can use a checkbook, you can use Quicken because your screen looks exactly like your checkbook. Just type in the payee, the amount, and Quicken does the rest. Every transaction is automatically categorized. A keystroke gives you detailed reports like income and expenses, showing where your money goes, monthly budgets, and more.
Quicken just reconciled my whole bank statement in 2 minutes.
So if you have an IBM or compatible PC with DOS or Windows or a Mac, here's an incredible offer. Quicken's price is $69.95. But call this number and Quicken is yours to try for 30 days for just $8. If not satisfied, mail back this card and Quicken is yours to keep. We won't charge you the balance. Call now.
Call 1-800-251-4200.
There's constipation and there's constipation. Oh, yeah. When it's this bad, take it to the max. New Maximum Relief Formula X-Lax pills with 50% more X-Lax medicine for maximum relief. Oh, yeah. Take it to the max.
This Valentine's Day, make sure you send your sweetheart the FTD flower basket bouquet. Oh, and make sure you send it a day or two early, because as Cupid says, if your sweetheart misses out...
It's as easy as FTD.
Hello, I'm Lou Waters at CNN Center. Ahead for our U.S. viewers at the top of the hour, it never rains in Southern California? Forget it. It's pouring there. We'll have the latest on flooding in L.A. and a complete check of the weather. Also, these senior citizens are in the swim, but many elderly Americans have trouble keeping their financial heads above water. We'll have a special report on their political concerns this election year. Join Sharyl, Attkisson, and me in about 22 minutes for Early Prime. Now back to Donna Kelley.
We'll do it, Lou. Thanks very much. And Jim Huber is here with Olympic sports news. So disheartening to practice and go for that long, waiting for the big moment, and then a problem develops. Jim?
Oh, to have something like this within your grasp, Donna. Hey, they are beginning to call this Winter Olympiad the Fall Classic. So many dreams dashed on the rutted downhill and slalom courses of Val d'Isère. Perhaps the most disastrous game this morning is Austria's. Hubert Strolls was within 5 seconds of defending his combined gold that he won in Calgary, 5 seconds away when he somehow missed a slalom gate and disqualified himself. Italians then took gold and silver in that event. Switzerland's Steve Locher finished third. The Austrians feeling pretty good about themselves after the first day with 7 medals total and more predicted, but Strolls leaves. And then their top woman skier, Sabine Ginther, hurt her back in a spectacular accident on the downhill course at Mirabel today. Her chances of competing are now 50-50, according to the doctors. Worse even for the American downhiller Wendy Fisher, who tumbled, hit her head during a separate accident, was knocked out of the event. In fact, knocked cold for a while. She's okay now. But all is not bleak for the Americans today. The United States hockey team shut out the Germans 2-0. First shutout of these games. Behind terrific goaltending from Ray LeBlanc, who stopped 46 shots on goal. The Americans now 2-0, their best start in a winter game since Squaw Valley when they went on to win the gold medal. And then there was the American loser, Cammie Myler, a strong 6th after the first run of the women's singles today. Austrian women, however, poised to sweep tomorrow, looking to add to their medal total now. They totaled 11 medals in the previous 2 winter games combined. Could be one beyond that by tomorrow with Klaus Offner in the lead midway through the Nordic combined. Good news for the Austrian team. We'll have more when sports returns to CNN next hour on Early Prime. Frank?
Thanks, Jim. Snowstorms, heavy rains, and bitter cold are hammering a region not used to them, parts of the Middle East this winter. And while many welcome the precipitation, officials warn the bad weather could send food prices soaring. CNN's Linda Scherzer takes a look at the region's harshest winter in more than 40 years.
For the third time this winter, government crises, political conflict, and loan guarantees took a back seat to what in Israel and elsewhere in the Middle East has become the big story, the weather.
I never saw something like this. I'm coming from Los Angeles. This is very unusual for me.
Unusual, too, for Israel, which hasn't seen snow like this for 40 years. And in a country better equipped to fight wars than battle the elements, Israelis spent much of this winter spinning their wheels.
Hey, man, what's wrong, man? Wrong here.
In some places, 2 wheels work better than 4. And in parts of the Galilee and Golan Heights, where fields and roads became swollen rivers, and in cities like Ashdod, rubber dinghies became the only way to travel. Meteorologists in the Holy Land are less scientific than philosophic about why the weather has turned so severe.
One of the characteristics of the climate is the fluctuations. That you get droughts and you get rainy years, and Joseph in the Bible said that after 7 drought years, you will get 7 good years.
The storms whipped through other parts of the Middle East, dumping 10 inches of snow in Damascus, up to 2 feet in Jordan, where massive flooding and bitter cold has killed several people and thousands of farm animals. Crops have been ruined. In spite of the havoc created across the Middle East, the weather has been welcomed. In a region where water is a precious commodity and often the source of political tensions, the waters have replenished rivers and streams and ended a 3-year drought. It's also created problems. In Israel, authorities were forced to release the precious resource into the Dead Sea, literally flushing it down the drain when water threatened to flood the city of Tiberias. Bridges linking Jordan and Israel have been closed, almost completely submerged in water. Unwittingly, the weather has bound longtime enemies in a cold snap.
There is no politics in weather. There is no boundaries in the weather.
There is a limit, though. Even the rabbis in Israel are considering sending a prayer to the heavens, asking for relief. Linda Scherzer, CNN, Jerusalem.
Up next on CNN World Report, international relief efforts reach former Soviet republics. We'll take you aboard one of the Operation Provide Hope flights.
Win a free trip to Asia's land of smiles, exotic Bangkok, Thailand. Enter Bay's Entree to Thailand recipe contest, and you may win a round trip for two on Thai Airways. Send us your original recipe using Bay's English muffins. And if you win, the week-long cooking school at the Oriental Hotel in Bangkok is yours. Plus, 4 days at a Thai beach resort or mountain hideaway. Look for specially marked packages in your grocer's dairy case. To the land of smiles from Bay's.
I was seeing my parents off, and I realized...
Dad, what do you got in here? Gardening equipment?
They've planned their retirement for a long time.
Common sense says the time to plan for your future is today.
One day, it's going to be our turn.
And Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company, can help you begin.
Debbie?
One day, Jeff sat down to figure out how much we'll have for retirement.
How's it going, Einstein?
Very funny. Take a look at
I
this.
thought we were doing a pretty good job. At this rate, we'll never retire.
Over 2 million Americans trust their retirement savings to Fidelity with choices like Magellan Fund. Magellan's approach to stock investing has made it the #1 performing mutual fund for the past 15-year period. So call Fidelity now for this free booklet, a common sense guide to planning for retirement. You'll also receive everything you need to take your first step. Call 1-800-525-7700. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
When you're on the go, nothing beats a thermal go mug from Long John Silver's. Just 99 cents each with any meal. Get yours now, they're going fast. Go fish at Long John Silver's.
I have written my life story so that recovery from addiction can be seen as the wonderful, life-giving experience that it is.
Whirlwind, recovery and help for others. To order, call 1-800-227-6269.
Welcome to CNN World Report, where we bring you news as reported from the perspective of broadcasters around the globe. Relief supplies from the United States and 6 European countries have arrived in what was the Soviet Union. Operation Provide Hope will deliver 18,000 tons of food, medicine, and other supplies to some 20 cities in the new Commonwealth of Independent States. 7 U.S. Air Force transport planes left their bases in Turkey yesterday. Turkish television takes us along on one of those flights.
The multinational Operation Provide Hope began this week to ferry urgently needed food and medical supplies to the ailing republics of the former Soviet Union. And Turkey is actively taking part in this American-led relief operation. Turkish Prime Minister Süleyman Demirel saw off 2 U.S. Air Force transport planes from the Turkish capital on Monday. The 2 planes were each loaded with 16 tons of food and relief supplies bound for Baku in Azerbaijan and Ashgabat in Turkmenistan. Another 5 U.S. transport craft took off from the Incirlik Air Base in southern Turkey. They were carrying medical supplies to Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan and food to Armenia, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan. The Turkish Red Crescent is also contributing to the aid. Provide Hope is expected to last 6 months. And those republics receiving the aid are grateful.
We have received 4 or 5 batches of humanitarian aid from Turkey, and this is the 3rd party from the West. Among those, medical aid is particularly important for us. But my ultimate wish is to have an economy that would not necessitate any humanitarian aid.
Turkey is particularly interested in boosting ties with the Asian and Transcaucasian republics of the former Soviet Union. It shares ethnic, religious, and linguistic affinities with Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. Ankara also wants to develop relations with the Caucasian Republic of Armenia. Turkey is widely seen as a model for the Muslim countries of the former Soviet Union because it is a democratic secular state with a free market economy. Those republics are rich in natural resources, but there is little, if no, industrial base. The relief operation also coincides with an official visit by Mr. Demirel to the United States. The Turkish Prime Minister was meeting President George Bush on Tuesday. In talks in Washington, Mr. Demirel was drawing attention to Turkey's geographic proximity to the Middle East, Central and Eastern Europe, and the newly independent republics. Ankara also says the United States and Turkey can play a significant role in providing technical assistance, advice, and investment, along with new markets for the raw materials of the former Soviet republics. This is Ümit Enginsoy from Turkish television, reporting for the CNN World Report.
A 3-year effort by a murdered girl's father has resulted in the trial of 2 suspects in Kenya. The body of British tourist Julianne Ward was found mutilated on a Kenyan game preserve in 1988, a few days after she disappeared. We learn more on the trial in this report from KTN in Kenya.
The mystery shrouding the murder of British tourist Julianne Ward over the past 4 years may finally be solved. The trial of the 2 accused, 28-year-old Donna Magiroi and 26-year-old Peter Metui Kipin, begins this week. The 2 are charged that on unknown dates in September 1988, they murdered Miss Ward. Investigations into her murder have included a long inquest which ruled Julie Ward was murdered. Her death was first attributed by police to an attack by wild animals. Her father, John Ward, has put up several cash awards for information leading to the arrest and conviction of her murderer and the discovery of her missing camera. 28-year-old Julie's burnt and mutilated remains were found in a remote corner of the sprawling Masai Mara Game Reserve, 13 kilometers from where her battered Suzuki car had been abandoned in a river. The trial, many, particularly Julie's parents, hope will finally reveal the motive behind the grisly murder. Kathleen Appender, KTN, for the CNN World Report, Nairobi.
When CNN World Report returns, for the newly independent nation of Estonia just competing at the Olympics is cause for celebration. First, let's check tomorrow's forecast for selected cities around the globe.
TWA introduces low business flyer fares for business travelers who are really serious about saving money. Fly coast to coast with these low TWA fares on first class, business class, or coach, or connect to 60 cities through TWA's convenient St. Louis hub. You can also take advantage of TWA's low business flyer fares to Europe. All fares are refundable without the usual penalties and restrictions. For reservations, call your travel agent or TWA at 1-800-221-2000.
Usually, when you send flowers out of town, you give the order to somebody who takes a cut. Then he passes the order to somebody else who takes a cut. But now there's Flowers Direct that actually lets you speak to a florist in the town where you're sending the flowers. Flowers Direct. All we cut is the middleman. Call Flowers Direct now, 1-800-621-2121.
Right now, when you book a Holland America Line cruise or cruise tour to Alaska, you'll save up to $300 per couple, which means you can enjoy exquisite dining, midnight sun, the finest service, and the spouting of whales, all at a remarkable value. There's no better way to see the great land than with the most experienced travel company in Alaska, and no better time to see your travel agent than today.
On CNN Today, is a cup or two of Joe anything to get steamed about? Coffee and cholesterol on early prime. Then on The World Today, fighting the high cost of aging. All today on CNN.
For the people of Estonia, this year's Winter Olympics has been a rousing success, despite the fact the country has yet to win a single medal. This is the first time since World War II that athletes from the tiny Baltic state have competed for the Estonian team and not a Soviet one. We have more from Estonian television.
Such are the great moments for a small nation. Triumphing citizens of Tallinn meeting the winners of the Seoul Olympic Games. Cyclist Erika Salumäe and basketball player Tiit Sokk. And here, Estonians in the year of awakening, in 1988. The idea was born, again with our own team, to the Olympics. For Estonia, an Olympic hero has always been a symbol of strength, as Kristjan Palusalu, the double gold medal owner in wrestling from the year 1936, Berlin. Only once has an Estonian sportsman won a gold medal in the Winter Olympics, in 1964 in Innsbruck, 1500 meter speed skating and Ants Antson. Alar Levandi, a bronze medal in Calgary in 1988, Levandi is also our greatest hope now that after 56 years, Estonia is again sending their own team to the Winter Olympics in Albertville.
It's a great feeling for us Estonians, a small nation as we are, to go after 40 or 50 years to Olympics. Such a big break we have, and yes, we're ready to go there.
Estonian Olympic Committee has formed a team out of 20 sportsmen from independent Estonia. A small country, especially at the starting point of its independency, has no doubt financial problems both in sending out the Olympic team to Albertville and in organizing TV transmissions. But the great will to introduce small Estonia to the whole world will help to overcome all the difficulties.
And we are ready to go there and to fight, and everything will be okay.
That report was from Estonian TV. Officials in Bulgaria hope a new trade pact with Russia will provide additional sources of energy to revitalize the sagging Bulgarian economy. Chronic shortages of oil, coal, and gas have sidetracked the government's economic reform plans. The pace of those reforms was a key concern of Bulgaria's leading political trade group, which held its second Labor Congress this week. More from Bulgarian television.
Created 3 years ago this week, the Podkrepa's Confederation of Labor dominated news in Bulgaria with demands for the resignation of the economic team in the cabinet it supports overall. The Confederation is worried by the delay and stalemate in the economic reform, primarily the result of the individual policies of Finance Minister Kostov and more specifically Trade and Industry Minister Ivan Pushkarov. Fears are this may undermine efforts to build a democratic society in Bulgaria. Fast changes are needed to convince people democracy is better than what existed until recently. The basic message is a willingness for social dialogue. The Second Confederation Congress will design a new look for the organization to make it feel more comfortable. There will be changes in the statute, program, and the leadership. The organization will emerge stronger and more consolidated, so it would continue to play its decisive role in society. 38 years old, founder and Confederation President Trenchev has molded an efficient and streamlined organization, which brought down the last communist-dominated government. The Confederation Congress opened in style Saturday morning in Sofia. Despite internal splits and controversy, the organization claims over a quarter of the working population in Bulgaria and enjoys quite a lot of popularity in the country and abroad.
We see it playing a growing role in building the foundations for solid democracy here within Bulgaria and also having implications for all of Central and Eastern Europe. We've had a very close relationship with Podkrepa. We've provided them with assistance, and we look forward to additional help for their work here. We've done this bilaterally, and we're also doing this in the context of assistance through the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions.
Podkrepa has shown it wields formidable power in influencing political events in the country. Clues as to how it plans to do that in the future could be given before the Congress closes. Ilyana Sherkova, Bulgarian television, for the CNN World Report.
Combined German and Japanese technology has developed a super-fast train, but critics say it may be too costly to operate. This report is from Germany's Deutsche Welle.
The new dimension of traveling, gliding quietly through the environment at 300 miles per hour. That's how the advertising brochures present the Transrapid. A magnetically suspended train, it has been tested and improved during the last 13 years on a track running 20 miles in rural Emsland. Just a week ago, the future application was okayed by the Ministers for Transport as well as Technology and Research and the head of the Federal Railway System.
Das bedeutet, dass es keine entscheidenden Sicherheits-
In November, the Federal Railways issued a certificate for commercial application, stating that there are no more faults in the security system and in systems efficiency, so we can start planning a pilot route. The route most favored at present would be a link from Hamburg to Berlin, with the line Bonn-Berlin a close second, mirroring the move from the old to the new capital. The advantages of the Transrapid: For the route Hamburg-Berlin, we need at present 2 hours with our high-speed intercities. The Transrapid will do the journey in half that time, thereby relieving air and motorway traffic. An estimated 16 million passengers are projected on that line, which is to be built by private investors at a present cost of currently $5 billion US. But the fast glider has long had its critics. The Transrapid is made to travel at high speeds over long distances between big cities, something which we don't need in the German decentralized structure. At its best speed of 300 miles per hour, it's too noisy and uses too much energy. So maybe decisions in Bonn are more slanted at the international sales of the system. It's the United States, the marketing company of the Transrapid, is looking at.
In mid-91, the state of Florida has issued a certificate for the construction and operation of a demonstration project with commercial service in between Orlando Airport and the Disney area.
With the present technological advantage the German Transrapid holds over its Japanese competition, Bonn politicians are almost bound to vote for the Ministry of Transport traffic plans that are incorporating the magnetic levitation technology. A successful start on the Bonn to Berlin route would then facilitate the introduction of the Transrapid worldwide. I'm Conny Schimmoch, Deutsche Welle Cologne for CNN World Report.
And that is all for the CNN World Report and the International Hour as well. For Frank Sesno in Washington, I'm Donna Kelley at the CNN Center in Atlanta. And now with a look at what's ahead on Early Prime, here's Lou Waters.
Thanks, Donna. Among the stories for our U.S. viewers coming up, boxer Mike Tyson, now convicted of rape, had an appointment today at the Indianapolis courthouse where he was convicted. We'll tell you what's next for this ex-heavyweight champion. Also ahead on Early Prime, a report on people caught in the squeeze between a fixed income and the ever-increasing cost of medicine. Join Sharyl Attkisson and me for Early Prime next here on CNN.
Coming up, Early Prime, followed by Inside Politics 92, after a word from your local cable systems here on CNN.
Do you realize just how much difference there is in life insurance rates from one insurance company to the next? For instance, if you're in good health and don't smoke cigarettes, Garden State Life Insurance may be able to save you as much as 50% off the cost of your life insurance. That's right. 30, 40, 50% off what you'd have to pay for a comparable amount of coverage elsewhere. And not just this month, but year after year for the rest of your life. Savings like that are well worth looking into. So if you need $100,000 to $1 million or more of quality term life insurance, you owe it to yourself to get the facts fast by calling now, 800-257-1257, toll-free for this free information package, including a personal coverage proposal that shows you just how much your savings might be. There's no obligation, no sales pressure, and it could be a real eye-opener. For instance, as your Garden State Life representative can tell you,
if you're a healthy 40-year-old who doesn't smoke cigarettes, you may qualify for $100,000 worth of quality term life insurance at rates so low they're less than 55 cents a day.
how do we do it? First, you save because we offer this life insurance at these low rates only to people who are in good health. That cuts our risk and your premiums. Then, because this quality term life insurance is sold in amounts of at least $100,000 or more, you get the advantage of volume discounts. And it's easy to do business with Garden State Life Insurance because you deal with us directly. You're always just a phone call away. So call today, 800-257-1257, toll free, 257-1257 for your free personal coverage proposal. No obligation, no pressure. Discover how this quality term life insurance could save you as much as 50% off your premiums every year for the rest of your life. 800-257-1257. Toll free. Call Garden State Life Insurance for your free information today. 257-1257.
This is CNN.
The heavy rain has stopped for now in Southern California, but for how long?
They were supposed to be the golden years, but for many, that's not the way it's turned out.
If I could say something to the president or to the higher echelons of the government, I would say, as a senior citizen, help.
The struggles of older Americans, later in the People's Agenda. This is Early Prime. I'm Sharyl Attkisson.
I'm Lou Waters. Hello. Former heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson now must wait nearly a month before he's sentenced for the rape of a teenage beauty pageant contestant. Tyson left Indianapolis today after a routine probation interview. He was found guilty of rape late yesterday. He'll be sentenced March 6th. Tyson could receive a maximum sentence of 60 years in prison, but a deputy prosecutor predicts he probably will get something between 7 and 11 years. Later, Jim Huber will join us with reaction to the Tyson conviction from the sports world.
Forecasters are predicting more heavy and unwanted rain for Southern California. The Los Angeles area is still soggy from torrential rains that hit yesterday. Abandoned cars litter roads that had been covered with water. Many drivers were caught by surprise by the downpour. Some climbed on the roofs of their cars to stay above water. About 50 people had to be rescued by boats and helicopters. Light rain continues. Heavier rains are forecast for tomorrow.
One of the nation's top money men is not ruling out the possibility of another drop in interest rates, but Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan says the central bank probably has done enough. Greenspan tells the Independent Bankers Association that lower interest rates have encouraged consumers and businesses to reduce their debt loads. He expects that to pay off for the economy in the very near future.
General Motors is giving some potential car buyers another reason to buy American. The automaker will match any incentive program sponsored by its 35,000 parts suppliers. For example, if a parts supply company is offering $1,000 to employees who buy a GM car or truck, the automaker will kick in another $1,000. The offer is good for 90 days. A Chrysler spokesman says there are no plans to match the GM offer. No comments from Ford. In Japan today, a man with a pistol and a samurai sword forced his way into the Prime Minister's office at the party headquarters building. He gave up after a 7-hour standoff with police. Nobody was injured. The building was virtually deserted because it's a national holiday in Japan. The intruder had demanded the resignation of the Japanese cabinet and a revival of Japan's system of emperor worship.
The U.S. Supreme Court today refused to stop the forced return of Haitian refugees held by U.S. forces in Cuba. Refugee advocates say Haitians who return face persecution at home. The U.S. has been sending hundreds of Haitians back since the Supreme Court okayed repatriation 12 days ago, but the refugee advocates say U.S. officials know some returnees have been tortured and killed. Today, the court gave the Bush administration until Friday to respond to those charges. The Navy, meantime, is investigating an allegation by a Haitian woman that a U.S. serviceman raped her at the refugee camp in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. 2 Libyans charged in the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 have vanished, and a former CIA official claims Libya may have executed them in an attempt to avoid international sanctions. However, a Libyan judge investigating U.S. and British charges against those suspects has offered to display them in Libya. The United States and Britain claim both are members of Libyan intelligence and must stand trial for the terrorist killing of 270 people in that plane over Lockerbie, Scotland. Libya has denied involvement. It has been seeking a compromise to avoid threatened sanctions against its airlines and aircraft parts.
Hundreds of thousands of Iranians marched through Tehran today. The huge demonstration marking the 13th anniversary of Iran's Islamic Revolution, which overthrew the Shah. Demonstrators chanted the familiar slogans, "God is great" and "Death to America." The rally culminates 10 days of celebrations that began February 1st. That's the date the Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile in 1979. He seized power 10 days later.
Still ahead on this early prime, could it be Paul Tsongas, the man they used to call a long shot, now leading the Democratic pack in New Hampshire?
And we'll take an in-depth look at how older Americans are struggling to keep their heads above water.
CNN's Early Prime, news and information for people in the prime of life.
Diane Casto, breast cancer, 9-year survivor.
Ron Benser, colon cancer,